Hey guys, still there. I already recorded this video once, but I'm gonna have to record it again because initially, and this video was on YouTube briefly, the audio was glitched. I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but I was not able to get any kind of TeamSpeak footage onto the video. So here is the replay feature of it, or the replay gameplay, as it were. I'm here with pretty much the whole team that you've come to expect. I got Pilot, I got Spect, I got Red, I got Sniper Fire, I got Mr. LKL, Mirik, and Mr. Apple. So aside from Red, I believe most of us are on TeamSpeak. Joseph Stillwell and Supreme Egg are also some guys we don't know. I'm using a Commonwealth General deck for this situation. And this Commonwealth deck, unlike the deck that I created previously for this one, which was, I believe, a Dutch deck, this one does have amphibious units. So in case that I want to get more units across from the mainland to the actual island or the volcano, I can do so, finally. We're starting out with a ton of units on this island, because initially, of course, you want to get as much stuff as possible here, so you don't have to start worrying about getting all of that stuff across later. You can see Spect starting out here with quite a lot of American stuff, backed up by Mr. LKL. I am going to start towards the hill, and I'm going to do so with a lot of AA units, seeing as last time around there was quite a lot of helicopters to shoot down. So I'm expecting that to happen again. Getting ready with some tracked repairs. I got a couple of infantry and airborne units, and some more ground-based units. Couple of Parenti recon vehicles. This is unfortunately, I believe, the cheapest grenade launching vehicle that I can get. They're pretty expensive, they're pretty fragile, but grenades can be very, very useful against infantry. Other than that, a couple of SLAV 25s, again, semi-multi-role against infantry and helicopters, Centurion marksman and one Chimera, in case I go up against some medium to heavy armor up there. Now I've placed 3 Challenger 2s in reserve, and emphasis on that in reserve. I do not want to have these things go up to the hill, because at this range they are not going to be very well capable of using that nice gun range that they have. So I won't be using those tanks just yet. They're just going to sit there and basically be there so that I don't have to get them across. On the left flank we have, of course, our massive fleet. Style Red, or let's call him Red from now on, has a lot of Lafayettes. Mirik has his own fleet of French Lafayettes, Congos, Pohangs, a couple of Chamzeries. And over towards the right we don't really have a fleet. This entire area is undefended. Alright, first stop, top of the hill. I want to capture that area to the best of my ability. I want to do so quickly before the enemy arrives. So, initially the helicopters will arrive. These guys are, I believe, carrying Gurkhas. It's been a while, so I'm a bit sturdy, or a bit rusty on what I used in this map. But I believe these are Gurkhas, flying up to the hilltop to get there first. Unfortunately, I'm about to run into a bit of resistance. A bit more resistance than I had expected. I run into a helo rush. This is Bubblebox from Bubblebox Strategy Gaming. It's Peeper, the old Camel, Gaddafi, so actually 3 players up there. And they are just murdering everything that I have. The amount of points that they're getting, 1500, is almost solely based on the units that they're killing from me and some of the units that Pilot sent up to assist. Now, nice as the SAS is, they are just not very good at dealing with this many helicopters. And to top it all off, let's throw in a B5. And that put Red 4 at an immediate 2000 points. They are now starting to pay for that as my AA is catching up. And after the game was done, I was analyzing what went wrong here. Basically, my units that were going up the hill were partly motorized, partly helicopter, and partly mechanized. So here's what happens. The helicopter units get there first. They can fly in a direct line from the spawn zone directly to the hill. So far, so good. They did not have any kind of AA. Next what happens is that my fast motorized units, so the LAVs got up there, the troop transports that I had. The last units to arrive were the mechanized units. The Centurion Marksman, the Tracked Rapier and the Chimera. The Chimera wouldn't have been much use. The Tracked Rapier and the Marksman would. Unfortunately they got there late, and that is because these guys just don't have the same road speed. They just don't have the capacity to get the same speed, and they were slowly catching up. That's when I lost all of my forces save for the Chimera and my Challenger 2s. Aside from that, I had lost every and there's the Chimera dead. I have lost every single unit that I sent up there. So this was a pretty crushing start for me. Pilot, same deal really. He sent up quite a few forces and got murdered in return. As far as our fleet's doing, Merrick is pushing up with a couple of Pumas, mostly to scout out what kind of defenses they have. And, Pavel sends forward one Jiangyu and takes out both helos. Over to the right, we got the USSR fleet coming in, or at least the Red 4 fleet. Tarantulas, Nanushkas, again 2 different players here. We got Zenda and Stalin. Sovremeni, Udaloy, and since this is a very high income map, and I believe you get 2,000 starting points, you can just field all of these things instantly. Over towards the right, the enemy is using some different ships, but mostly the same type. There's just less of them. You can again see the Jiangyu, the Nanushka 3, the Udaloy, the Sovremeni. But our fleet is not quite up to killing them. And especially with Pohangs launching these missiles one by one, they are not going to be very effective. Red is pulling back, where Merrick is pushing forward, and this is unfortunately due to lack of communication. Red is not on TeamSpeak. Merrick was on TS with the rest of us, so he was quite upset with this guy not pushing forward, and instead retreating his own ships. Whereas these Fayettes were perfectly capable of engaging. They had 8 exocets apiece, and he had quite a few Hatsuyukis there as well. For some reason though, he pulled them away just as Merrick was attacking, causing us to lose quite a few of our forces there. Over to the right, you can see a massive battle line. It's been formed up of a whole load of Nanushkas, a couple of Tarantulas, and in the front a few more Nanushkas. I'm not sure exactly why he set it up like this. The Nanushkas have a range of 6 kilometers on their missiles. These guys have a range of 9. And then there's another line of Nanushkas with 6 kilometer range. So, fleet-wise or battle-wise, I would say that the Nanushka line would have to be in front of the Tarantula if you're looking at musket range. But, I don't know. This guy was just choosing to set up his fleet a bit different. Now, I didn't really have anything left other than the units that I had initially spawned in. So my challengers are basically standing by and seeing where they're needed, as I was waiting for some more points to come in. And yes, normally I don't recommend using the use of a command helicopter, but in a situation like this, and to emphasize, this map is designed specifically for... this deck is designed specifically for this map. That's why I have helicopter command units. I know I can use infantry borne or infantry command units borne by helicopter, but I just don't get as many of them, and I don't want to spend too many points on commands. So instead I'm flying a Lynx in to get control of Hotel, get us some more income. Meanwhile, Red Fleet is moving. Of course, just as I was sending my challengers north, these guys start to actually push in our positions, and they are killing off the units that Sniper Fire had landed on this island. I was a bit surprised to see Sea Busters and a MOBA over on the island, where they are very hard to resupply. Not impossible, but just more difficult than keeping them closer to your fob. Now, over here they would have been more useful. But the sheer number of ships is very, very overwhelming. Something that our ASM launchers cannot keep up with. So just as the challengers are starting to get ready to move north to help out Spect on his push through Hotel, the Southern Fleet engages, and I have to start to retreat this group. And meanwhile, I was also saving up for some more some anti-ship units, not anti-airplane, anti-ship units. And you are going to start seeing me do anti-ship salvos. The enemy by now has about 2,000 points more than we do, and they have an AA umbrella over here, a combined AA umbrella that's making it very, very difficult to actually get through the armor or to get through the missile defense put up by all of these ships here. They are, however, pretty close to the shore. If they get much closer, we can hit them with tanks, so that was going to be the next plan. Over to the north, Mirek lost his entire fleet. Spect had a couple of bake news nearby to provide anti-airplane defenses for his troops near the coastline, but with any kind of defensive fleet gone, these are pretty easy pickings for the Udaloy and the Sovremeni. I'm sending in some units to assist here. That's the Challengers heading north, and I got one Sea Harrier going towards the north, trying to get either a missile hit on a ship or seeing if there's any kind of radar-guided AA that they may have positioned along these islands. It's not terribly likely, but you never know. The fleet over on the right keeps moving up, it keeps getting closer, and they are putting up a bit of a fight with these Brilliers, but it just does not really go through. Even smaller airstrikes like the one that you just saw against one Anushka gets swatted out of the sky. As far as the fight on the island goes, if you zoom in out you can see this a bit more clearly. Red 4 really only has control of Echo, and we control everything else. We have Joseph Stilwell and Sniper Fire operating together on this flank, and we have Spect and LKL over here on the other flank. The top of the hill is currently controlled by Mr. Apple and Style Red, as well as a few units from Pilot. And Red 4 has still a load of forces over here in Echo, so we have to be careful. As mentioned, my Challengers are still making their way south again, trying to get some shots in on these ships that are getting too close to shore. And while the Nanushka 3s have a very decent gun on them, 76mm with a high rate of fire and some HE, they don't have any kind of armor penetration. So they will be doing some damage to my tanks, it just won't be that much. And considering that the Challenger 2 has frontal armor of 23 points, I can probably survive that for quite a long while. An attack with a couple of F-111Gs unfortunately did not get the hoped result, as we have a very large air patrol, 3 Su-27 PUs here. And this is when the fleet keeps pushing in. A couple of Nanushkas are moving up, and they do have some better range than my Challengers, but the Challengers are starting to do damage insofar as they're hitting. And yes, they may get worried at some point, they may get a bit stunned, but overall they can still pretty reliably hit the targets that are coming closer. And that's what this guy is quickly going to find out. You can see that he is trying to pull away with some of these ships. I don't even have to hit them that many times, because Nanushkas have a strength of 80. And I'm dishing out 22 points of armor damage, or damage in general, every single shot that I take. Sniper Fire is trying to defend the main spawn here, and this is a critical spawn. We don't have any other way of getting units in. I have some aircraft that I was saving up, CF-18 ASUWs, firing anti-ship missiles and trying to get some of these ships out of the way. And there we go. Their Tarantula is hit. The other Tarantulas are taking a lot of damage from the surviving fleet from Red. I'm not sure why he's pushing his LCUs in close. That's a bit of a risk. If these things go up, you lose a ton of supplies. And for some reason, the fleet effort here seemed a bit disorganized. Especially considering that there's a whole lot of Jiangyu 3s that are just sitting idly by, doing nothing. My Challengers got out of range when they were still sitting there, so I'm relocating them, trying to get a better line of sight. And that is when we have Spect firing his anti-ship missiles at a couple of Nanushkas. And of course getting instantly resupplied from the FOBs that we have lying about here. Another Nanushka goes down. Style Red, or Red, is still trying to defend the position here. If we lose this, we lose the game. We have to keep control of this area. Now, they're not terribly likely to immediately push in and destroy everything we have, because our CV is pretty deep inland, and that's not the only CV we have. But you never know with these guys. You want to get them before they manage to get this far into the zone and block off our entire air spawn. F-111G comes in for me. Fires off a couple of missiles at this Nanushka. Missiles impact and destroy the ship. So we are slowly but steadily whittling down this fleet, and this is something that they cannot keep up indefinitely. New flight of anti-ship planes goes up. Missiles are in the sky or in the air, and there goes another Nanushka. Unfortunately, Sniper got it before my missiles hit, which means that my missiles were a bit of a waste there. But we are slowly but steadily whittling them down. Unfortunately, they still have 2,000 points more than we do, so there's still a lot of work to be done. In the meanwhile, my command helicopter gets destroyed in hotel by the Sovremeni or the Udaloy. I'm not sure which one took it down exactly, it doesn't really matter. But we lost that income, so we have to try and get that back ASAP. The hillside is secure. We do have the top of the hill, thanks to Pilot, who landed the command section there. And this gives us a lot of income. As Gulf is worth 10 points, it is really nice to have. And after a while you will start to see the difference that this makes in the deployment of forces, as you just got a lot more stuff to deploy. Over towards the south, we don't really have that much going on anymore. There are still some ships trying to approach, but they are doing it in a bit of a haphazard fashion. These things are pretty much coming in solo, and while Sovremeni's are pretty damn good ships, they are not designed to take this many hits on themselves or without any kind of escorts, and that's what happens if you get one of these ships pushed forward. If he'd pushed that ship forward with the escort from all these Jangyus, that would have been a whole different story, as it would have been much more difficult for us to try and nail those ships. In the north, Spect is skirmishing with Gaddafi over here, and they seem to be aware that there is an air threat to their ships. That's when you start to see these units usually. Amphibious anti-air units with a great anti-airplane range, a decent amount of missiles, 6 missiles there, and pretty good accuracy for a unit like this. With those in place, it's going to be more difficult for us to hit their ships without losing any kind of aircraft. And since these things are a lot cheaper than our aircraft, it's a definitely good defense to have these in place. A couple of aircraft are coming in again. Another anti-ship missile sortie is getting ready to go. And something that you need to keep in mind about these jets is that they also have short-range air-to-air missiles. They got the AIM-9M. Very accurate missile, 60% accuracy at short range. And that is what I'm going to be using a little later. For now, let's just blow up a Jangyu 3. Now, Jangyu 3 was pushed forward for some reason that I still cannot quite fathom. But by pushing that ship forward, he lost the escort power from his buddies and he just went down. Spect, in the meanwhile, was having quite a bit of resistance. He was getting attacked by a whole lot of EV, a couple of Jalos, Concours M. He just did not have the forces anymore to hold on to this territory for much longer. So I'm going to bolster his forces with my 3 Challenger 2s. Normally when you have a situation like this and you get 1 Super Heavy, you're pretty happy to get the reinforcements. 3 Super Heavies can make a real difference in a situation like this. And besides, these are the only units that I had, short of my aircraft. Short of my aircraft. So I didn't really have that much else to do anyway. The hilltop is still being more or less contested as the Marines from Supreme Egg are pushing down. And of course, this hilltop will still contain a lot of forces. There's a load of helicopters. You got some, by the looks of it, MTLBVs or. No, actually, might these be BMDs? Nope, BTR robots. Alright, close enough. This is what Red 4 has going on the hill. They get a whole lot of Concours M, some AA units here at Tungushka, we got some Strelas, but mostly that helicopter mass is a problem. Bubble Box is pushing forward a load of these Mi-4 AVs. And while one of those things with Rocket Paws and Malyutkas is not that much of a threat, having about 8 of them push forward gets annoying real fast. So he was quite determined to turn the tide on this push. You can see that they are still trying to get control of the hill, but they just don't have enough forces here. Over towards the right, there is a massive battery of Schmells. And these things are, of course, I'll say the naval version of rocket artillery. Loads of 140mm rockets. They can fire them in pretty significant salvos. They eat supplies. So you can see they already went through 1 Muna, which is 15,000 points of supplies. That's basically a whole fob gone. And every once in a while you can... Yep, there we go. They are starting to fire. It's going to take them quite a while to aim and to reload. These are not spammable weapons in the sense that you can fire them, wait a minute and fire again. But they are quite effective in the sense that you can stun a larger area. And meanwhile, on the left side of the map there was a lot of air action going on. And loads of Tomcats were being spawned in, trying to deter the Red 4 players from pushing them with their aircraft. What they were trying to do was neutralize the rest of our fleet, which is hiding out, let's say, in port in Delta. Here's the air train coming in. We got Firebaus, A5s, MiG-29s, Su-27Ks, the whole anti-air fleet. Sorry, the whole anti-ship missile group was coming out, escorted by the Su-27 PUs and a Yak-141. So this is going to be quite the air battle. And we are trying to deter them some way. That was my Eurofighter going down. But they just have too many aircraft supporting this push. Fortunately, it seems that they got no missiles off, and they are actually heading home without having completed their mission. So we were doing quite alright. Here's the battery from the Schmells coming in. Large volume of fire. Trying to hit the hilltop. Seemingly not doing that much damage. There's just not that many units that they can hit. You can see that pilot's command section is panicked, but otherwise completely unharmed. And I don't believe that many units were lost there. We are, however, still 2,000 points behind the enemy team, so we still have to work on getting closer there. But for now, we are getting a decent amount of terrain, we have a decent income, and we are slowly whittling down the fleet of the enemy. And as such, we are hoping to get more and more points. Here's another air attack from me. A couple of CF-18s and F-111Gs. Load of missiles go into the Sovremeni. And he survives with 1 hit point. Had he been alone without the accompanying Udaloy 2, this would have been a completely different story, and he would have died. Had I gone for the Udaloy, I would not have killed him, as the Sovremeni has less hit points. 250 versus 300. And that's when Spect comes in with all of his Super Pumas and nails the Sovremeni. Another aircraft or airstrike comes in from Joseph Stilwell, going after the Udaloy, but again not quite killing it. Challenger 2s have finally arrived after being refueled by one of these helicopters. They are getting to the front line, but that's exactly when the enemy, when we don't have any kind of recon anymore. So just as I'm trying to hit targets, there's barely any targets for me to see. We do have some AA, so I'm not too worried about that, but still a Challenger 2 is a very heavy tank, quite pricey, and I have to be careful with these things. At this point there seemed to be a bit of a lull in the fighting. There was not that much going on. We were all trying to consolidate our positions. You can see a lot of movement here as units are being shoveled around. M1A2 comes in. And remember that all of this had to be done using these LCMs. LCM stands for Landing Craft Mechanized, if I recall correctly. As far as I'm concerned, they seem to be a bit leaky, as the water seems to be just flowing through the ship. Instead of keeping the occupants and the cargo dry, I guess they have a bit of a swimming pool indoors. But whatever, these things are critical to our success. they need to keep ferrying fresh troops. And you can see that Mr. Apple already has another load of chaparrals coming to meet the LCMs, trying to get more AA to the front line. I'm flying in with a smaller sortie of anti-ship planes this time. 3 F-18s of different nations. This is the CF-18 and I have an F-18 Super Hornet coming in shortly after it. With these aircraft I hope to hit the Luda. The Luda is not that heavily defended. It's quite okay, or quite easy to kill. The thing is we just don't have eyes on it. There's the Luda, but instead I already went for the Nanushka. Missiles going in. Nanushka did not stand a chance. And that's another 120 points. And we are suddenly getting real close to the enemy team as far as scores go. We are suddenly only 300 points removed from them. A lot of those Mi-4 AVs coming in again. Instead of Bubble Box, this is instead Tic Tac Tics, who is using them to quite decent effect to suppress the infantry that is still operating here. And without any kind of decent AA, and while I consider Wolverines pretty okay, they are not going to be capable of shooting down all of those helos. That means that Joseph Stilwell will lose quite a lot of infantry, and we might end up losing this entire zone. If we lose that zone, there's really nothing stopping them from pushing into Charlie, other than a Challenger 2 and an ADAT, so we have to be real careful. Again, another anti-ship strike comes out, 2 F-111Gs, that means 8 missiles, backed up by nothing I was going to say, but yeah, no, there are no further aircraft coming in, and that's another ship dead. And slowly but steadily I'm trying to crawl my way back to a positive kill-death ratio by killing as many ships as possible, and I'm slowly but steadily getting there. This is when we make positive. We are now ahead on points, finally. Challengers are doing whatever they can to get some of the pressure off of Mr. LKL and Spect over here. They are, however, taking quite some fire. You can see they're also struggling with fuel issues. Ammo is quite alright on these tanks, so I don't have to worry about that much. But they are taking quite some damage, so I'm bringing them back to the Chinook over here to get repaired. Another anti-ship strike comes in, and these things get resupplied so fast that I can pretty much keep one sortie of anti-ship planes in the air at all times. Unfortunately, these guys are all together. That means that not too many of these missiles will hit, but still some of them will go through. And instead I end up getting a double kill. Of course that only means you get the points for one of these ships, but the other one gets blown up because it was too close and probably already damaged. The other Jiang Yu is also taking quite a beating from the explosions or secondary explosions from the other ships. So we're slowly but steadily getting this fleet down. And of course the enemy is not going to take that too lightly, as we have another airstrike come in from their team. And he's using his Su-27Ks to just deter the Blue Force, or my team, from using any kind of our aircraft, considering that those things also have long-range anti-air missiles. Those, I believe they are the 727 Vimpels. Hold. No, these are the R-77 long-range Vimpels. They got 6 of those. So they carry more of those missiles than most air superiority fighters do. With my Challengers, okay, I believe one Challenger got destroyed. I wasn't paying attention, I don't know what exactly killed it, but the other 2 are still being repaired, taking on fuel. And since we are pretty blind, I'm bringing in a bit of reconnaissance to try and spot some more targets. We have to get eyes in. Over towards the right, we got nothing left. 2 Wolverines, 4 units of small, 1 Grizzly, and 1 command infantry. I wouldn't be surprised if Red doesn't have too much either. They got a little bit of infantry here, 1 Buck, 1 Tunguska, and a command infantry. That's basically all they have. So we are, well, let's say, bluffing each other out of this zone, or pretending that we have more than we actually do. And my 24D gets hit time and time again by the Wolverines, but just notice how many times they need to hit the target before they actually kill. It's due to the 5 HE damage of these missiles, which for an HE missile going is not that good, considering the Buck fires the 9 HE missile. Buck nails all of the helicopters combined with the firepower from the Tunguskis, and that's another couple of Hueys down. Let's switch it back to blue. Again, sometimes you have these moments in a 10v10 where there's just nothing really going on. You're just trying to hold your terrain, you're trying to get your forces back into fighting condition, repair the units that you have, maybe fix up some units with a couple of reinforcements, get some more ammo into the units that you still have left, or otherwise build up for another push. And talking of pushing, we have managed to take control of India. We have a couple of ships there, and this is an air and sea reinforcement zone, which is something that you have to keep in mind on this naval map. If you forget it, then you can be quickly punished by losing some of your ships or aircraft, as they're coming in from a different area to what you might expect. If, for example, you intend to fly your aircraft over towards, let's say, this area, and you think they're going to come from here, they may actually end up coming from India and flying directly over enemy AA. So you have to be real careful with where your aircraft are going to be coming from. Again, another air anti-ship strike for me going into a Jiangyu, another 150 point Jiangyu destroyed. As far as points goes, we're not doing too bad. Everyone seems to be pulling their own weight. I'm not sure if I'm actually pulling my own weight quite yet, as I think I lost more forces at this stage than I actually killed. So I'm still on a journey of redemption after that massive, massive destruction that you can see here. There's still so many vehicle corpses here. Stormers, Scorpion tank, moving Scorpion tanks? Okay. You can see a Stalwart, this looks like a Striker, no, not a Striker. I never use them, that's why I always forget their name. AGGM carrier anyway. Everything died as it was trying to struggle up this hill. This is quite the testament to what happens if you let Red 4 come in with a helo spam. Over towards the right, we have a couple of picket units here. We have our own Wolverines, and we have an enemy OSA. And basically all these units could do was wave at each other, as they were not really capable of defeating each other. The Flakcom has no armor, and the only way that a Wolverine can actually damage them is by using the machine gun. That would take forever, though. The Kahoo is a much faster option. And that eventually, I think you can still see it sinking over there. That was the end of the Strela. Over towards the north, we have a couple of aircraft which are seemingly gearing up for another strike. I'm trying to rush out my aircraft in a quick defense with 6 long-range AMRAAM missiles and a couple of short-range AIM-9s. Unfortunately, these aircraft don't hang around long enough for my aircraft to arrive. And with some sort of command unit put in by Red 4, that means that our aircraft are going to spawn all the way back there and no longer up in India. So I wasn't quite fast enough to respond there. At the front line, there is a bit of skirmishing going on, but nothing really too intense. A couple of light riflemen are engaging with Yukyonde. A couple of Strelas backing them up, but there's nothing really going on, nothing too serious. I'm going to speed this up a little because this replay is taking forever to show you a little bit of how the battle is going to progress. I'm bringing in some LCMs with Royal Marines because I want to land on this island. I want to deter the enemy from keeping this island, and that's probably where the command infantry is. Maybe some AA units, maybe a recon unit. If I can get those down, we can get control of India. And with control of India, we can spawn our aircraft directly over the fleet, which is in need of more air defense. Now these LCMs are pretty fast. They have a speed of 32 knots, which is some of the faster units. And they are going to be quite safe to arrive there. I'm keeping a small-ish air patrol here of a couple of Hornets and CF-18s. Mostly to try and bait their fighters into coming out to play, to try and get a couple of hits on these very expensive anti-ship planes. No such thing though. And that's when my LCMs are getting ready to move forwards. I'm trying to stay away from the coastline. Let's slow it down. Because the coastline might contain tanks, and I don't want my ships to get... I don't want my LCMs to get shot at. My aircraft are engaging, but they are trying to flee. One Hornet is evac'd, the others still have missiles, and they're turning around trying to get hits on the aircraft that are still getting away here. CF-18 fires, and there's a 100-point kill. From an aircraft that's not really designed to take on enemy aircraft, but mostly there to just kill off enemy ships. Now this is a bit of a weird situation. My Stormers were not quite able to land here, so I decided to offload my Marines instead. Indeed, ran into a bit of AA there, a couple of Strelas. No match whatsoever for the Royal Marines. And I believe that Mirik with his STRBs managed to nail the command infantry, so that now we have control over this zone. It's not that much as far as income, but it does give you an air spawn and a naval spawn, which means that we can, if we want to, do a naval invasion perhaps on this town or on Echo as a whole. Over to the right, the majority of the Red 4 fleet has been destroyed, and we are getting ready to push in. We have quite a few ships here from Mirik mostly, a couple of ships from Red. You can see that Mirik has put up a large wall of Chamseries and Pohangs to deter the enemy from using airstrikes, as these things are really good at stopping enemy airstrikes. Any kind of missile going into a Chamsery is usually quite effectively dispensed with. We're slowly pushing up, mostly Specs doing there. My tanks, which again, I lost another one. I still don't know what happened to it. I still only have one Challenger left. I have some Royal Marines there as well, which I sent in, I believe, through a Hilo, AH-1s. And these two guys are getting ready to rejoin their Stormers to start floating across, because that's something that the Stormers can do. They have a pretty respectable amphibious speed of 40, so I can use those to get across, land the forces, and push on from there. The middle of the map is still in our position. It's not seen that much conflict and is doing quite alright. Speed it up again. As far as points goes, we are now quite safely ahead. We have 800 points more than they do. Of course, this will keep going back and forth, but mostly it keeps going forward for us. We keep getting more points. And now we are finally getting terrain. We are finally starting to push into Echo. You can see quite a few super heavies operating here. M1A2, M11HC, Challenger 2, which instantly got wiped out by, I believe, an airstrike. Ludas get destroyed. There's another Luda going down. And we just try and push into this territory with most of what we have, but it's getting quite heavily defended. We are not able to get to these structures without losing all the infantry. And without the structures, we don't really have a foothold there. Jarhead Trapper surrenders, which is one of the Red 4 players. And I believe that the rest of the team is still intact, both ours and theirs. It was just a very tight match. Nobody had any disconnects, nobody really rage quit, I believe. So we're all doing quite fine. This was a bit of a curious sight. A whole lot of PT-90s, which ran out of fuel, and they have to be greeted by a Muna to get resupplied. They all got destroyed, I believe, by, I don't know, a missile strike? Something like it. I got 2 kills on both Munas. I know that I was able to capture those, but I just did not want the enemy to keep resupplying their own fleet and fixing those guys up. Not going to happen. We cannot keep these things from continuously firing missiles. So the best way is to just knock them down. Up in the north we are crawling or creeping our way into this zone. And we are losing a lot of forces while we're doing it. Mostly the helicopters and airstrikes. So I'm bringing in a couple of chieftain marksmen to try and defend against all of those helos. Chieftains are quite sturdy at 11 frontal hit points or 11 frontal armor. They can survive quite a few missiles before going down. And of course that will depend on the type of missile, but most of those are not going to be that deadly against it. Napalm strikes keep pushing in. Echo is neutralized. And with that, Red 4 only has Foxtrot. They have no other zones whatsoever. We're pushing up, capturing fobs, which unfortunately are empty. Mr. LKL has a little bit more luck and captures some fobs which are almost intact. There's another fob for 7.5. And now we capture it with, I believe, my Lynx that was able to get it first. So now we have the entire island under our control. Points-wise, we have managed to gain 5,000 points over Red 4. And with the whole landing force that we're sending forward, there is really not a lot that Red 4 can still do. Other than fire sort of scorched earth war, where they're just trying to defeat as many of our forces as possible and destroy so many units that we are going to start losing a lot of points. No such thing. And we have been able to neutralize all of the fleet that was hiding out in Foxtrot. Because there is a command ship in there, Foxtrot is now neutralized. But of course now the quest for all the command units begin. They had quite a few of them. UAZ there, T-80 UK, one of those, I believe it's Chinese, the BY-5020, and another UAZ. And it's basically a race now of who's going to get the most kills. That's usually how this works. I'm not actually that much involved, and I was quite late to the party with my LCMs here. And it took quite a while to find out where the last command unit was. I think we didn't see this one until the last possible second. There is, however, one airstrike that's going to come in, and that's something I do want to highlight, because that airstrike has an immense amount of aircraft. Everybody was trying to get this unit as we thought it was command infantry. I believe that Mr. Apple is about to spot it. He's about to fly over the infantry here. Let's have a look at the skies. Yep, he spotted it. This one going to start... Oh, and actually managed to kill it too. BTR-80 got it. When the attack marker... Yep, there's the attack marker. Here is the aircraft train. F-111Cs. Super Etendars even. We got Phantoms, we got Tomcats, CF-18 ASUWs, Phantoms. Everything. Their mother and their dog was trying to kill this. And just watch. I know that there's no degrees of dead, but I'd say that these guys are extremely dead. The amount of firepower that we unleashed on those poor Morskaya Pakotas and their accompanying transport was extremely over the top, but it was funny nonetheless. I finally managed to make positive, getting 900 points more than I lost, which wasn't too bad. The rest of my team did very, very well. Pilot was one of those guys who was also in the initial airstrike from the helicopter spawn, or from the helicopters at the top of the volcano. So he lost quite a few units there as well. Sniper Fire did very well. Mr. LKL did very well. Mirak, 1,000 points more than he lost. Mr. Apple, very well played, ×2 markup. Joseph Stilwell lost a little bit more than he gained, and same for Supreme Egg. As for Red 4, most of these guys stuck around all the way to the end, and I'm very, very grateful for them for doing so, because they kept us on our toes, and I believe the only one that I saw leaving was Jarhead and Gaddafi all the way at the end. But other than that, all of these guys stuck around. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that match. I was hoping to upload it initially with all of the TS footage or all of the TS commenting that was going on, but unfortunately that recording somehow failed. So, better luck next time, and this is instead the recording that I wanted to do for you about this map. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you want to see more of Smoke in the Water, let me know in the comments so I know what kind of videos to make next. Otherwise, have good fun playing Wargame. Good luck, kick some ass, and I'll see you soon for the next video.